to another great episode of Security Halt. And today I am joined by the lovely, well, you go by Jennie K Wellness on LinkedIn.
I do.
I'm not even going to try to butcher last name. Maybe I will. Kvintahs.
Yeah, perfect. Because you can't even pronounce it because in Sweden, the A comes with a round dot above, so it's a different it's a different what do you say letter?
Completely different. Yeah.
You don't even have it. You don't even have it in English.
We don't have it. So, but the unique thing is we both have really hard last names to pronounce. So, even better.
Yeah. So you want me to try?
Yeah, go ahead, try
it. Caballero.
Man, you smoked it. You actually got it right.
Because the double L is with a pronounced like a J. Yeah.
100%.
I read Spanish in school for 1 year.
Man, you crushed it. Once again, proving Americans, we are way behind the power curve. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Because today's topic is it's very intimate. It's very serious. And I think it ties in perfectly with what you're doing now professionally. You're an advocate and somebody that's a staunch champion for wellness, nutritional wellness. Because it's not just what's going on, what we can control outside of our body, because it's also what we can really control and impact how we function and how healthy we are by making sure we're eating and doing good things throughout the day. But before that, we share parts of the same story. Being in a relationship with somebody in the military is not easy. And here for the last 20 years, our nation and the entire world has been fighting in a global war against terrorism. But we don't share the stories from other parts of the world. Husbands and wives relationships, they're all the same. They all need the same thing: love, respect, caring, nurturing, and development. And we don't focus on the entire world. We only focus on our own little space. But in your story, when we first met and we first started talking, the similarities and everything that we had both experienced in our first marriages was just very common, and something that I like to talk about with guys and gals, because we don't understand the impact that our stress and mental health have on our family. So I really want to say thank you for joining us today to go into that very intimate and very private discussion with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, and I'm so happy that I met you, because it is a very important topic. It's very important to talk about it openly, and so that every woman and man and children can hear about it and get an understanding. And, they're not alone. And I have felt so alone in this. So it was like a blessing just to talk to you the other week when we first met, because it's really, really difficult to be in that situation. And, when you talk to people around you in your surrounding, family members or friends or colleagues or whatever, they don't understand if you don't have experienced or live in a community where you have similar family structures, of course, but I didn't. So nobody knew, nobody understood, and nobody could even imagine. It's very important to talk about this topic.
Yeah. So when you and your ex-husband first met, that's the thing that really stuck to me. It's always the same story for the most part. High achievers, people that have a drive to do amazing things. They're always going to find each other. You're always finding your equal. And when it comes to the world of, special operations, which your ex-husband was also a part of, it's that thing where it's a very attractive mentality. You want somebody that can be your equal, that can go out there and conquer the world with you. But that can quickly spiral out of control when you don't acknowledge your spouse has the same drive. It all becomes sort of like, well, they're just here for me and my career.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a high achiever, and I was an athlete in alpine skiing. And so I had a background from that. And then we met, and he was obviously a high achiever in the military, and that kind of collided and crashed. And I didn't really understand anything. But in our relationship, whatever I did didn't mean anything. It didn't matter. It wasn't important because he was in the most important organization in the world. He was working with the most important things that you can ever work with. Peacekeeping, or whatever you call it, or warfare, or for me, I don't see it as peacekeeping any longer, because I felt like I was at war at home.
Yeah.
So it was really a crash in our relationship, and really hard to understand, and why it became the way it did. And I've often blamed myself, and I've asked myself, could I have done anything differently? Could I have, looked at myself, worked with myself, or how could I have changed? And I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Of course, we are always two people, but whatever you go through in your organization, or in your line of work, it's most often very negative. Like I said, you talk about peacekeeping, but it's a very destructive and negative surrounding. Everything is about some kind of threat, some kind of fear, some kind of destruction. So it's really
all doom. It's all doom.
I know, doomsday. because you talk to the nation about peacekeeping, but then you go to war. And that's something totally different. And if you do that, and then you come home and you have that, it's like ingrained in every cell of your body. It's something that you are fed day in and day out, through media and through everything. And then you come home to your family, and being happy, that's difficult.
Yeah.
You have to be really, really strong to put that aside, and not let that affect you. I understand that. But we all have a choice. We all have a choice of what we do to the people we love.
Absolutely. And those are the things that I recognized within myself as I reflect back to those early years as a Green Beret. The only important thing was whatever was on, our calendar for deployment, whatever we were training for. There was no compartmentalization of being able to leave things at work and walk home or walk in that front door and be happy to see my wife and be engaging in the present moment. It was always a deadline, a timeline, a far off place that we had to go to, even if it wasn't war, even if it wasn't necessarily for a combat, if it was just a train up mission, that was the most important thing. And how dare I or How dare she think about taking a vacation, take some time off to go do things. Everything was just, you can't think that the entire world's going to always come to an end and then expect our families to not feel like we're off, like we're not crazy. And it's hindsight is 2020 looking back, and I don't reflect back with anger and resentment towards that younger version of me, but now I use it as a like, hey, this is a learning moment for somebody. This is something that we have to talk about, learn about being able to come home and leave work behind, be able to be happy around your family, be able to understand that they don't need the pressure of the entire safety of the world, of another nation on their shoulders. That's not the reality. Yet I still see a lot of younger guys, a lot of people that are still in falling or becoming a victim to that mentality of bringing that stress, that tangible feeling, and it just permeates out of your body. It really does permeate into other people that you're just so stressed and so wound tight because, man, I got to make sure I execute this mission coming up and this train up. Brother, sister, leave that at work. Like, invest in your family, invest in being able to talk to them and let them know that, like, hey, you are my number one. You are my number one priority. Family first. Like, because you can't do anything. You're of no value to anybody else if you're not taking care of yourself and your family. But man, we are constantly learning these lessons on the back end. And I don't think, and it's, we have to understand on both sides, a family, a marriage, it's a hard thing to let go and move away from. And we have to accept that sometimes that's the best effort for safety, for everybody's development, for everybody's reassurance. And sometimes you can't fix things, but you can't blame yourself. We can't blame ourselves for what could I have done? Like, clearly you stayed, you fought it out for a long time. So don't hold yourself to that point of like, man, I could have done more, because sometimes guys like us in this world, the job becomes the number one thing. It really does. And we need more advocacy and more people talking about the regrets and understanding like, hey, we could have done this a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talked about going on vacation. I can totally relate to that because once we met, I mean, my ex has only worked within the military from the beginning, from the school years, and I mean, as an athlete, I used to travel a lot. And even after, it was like a culture in my family that we traveled each year, we would go somewhere. And I continued to do that after I moved away too, to explore the world, meet people. I love to talk to people and I love to meet new people. That's, it makes me really happy. And then when we first met, obviously I was in love and everything, but and I thought that would change. But as soon as I brought up something about, I really want to go travel somewhere, it would be like a lockdown, like the pandemic lockdown. It was more or less, we can't go anywhere. Why should we go somewhere? Why spend the money and just waste, going somewhere and enjoy? I think it was the fact that he could probably not relax. And this is something that I maybe understand today, but at that time I didn't. But because it was more to me, I couldn't understand. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to travel because that was a waste of the money. Because he rather spend time and money on what was important in life. And important in life for him was to go to work and honor the nation and be prepared and ready at all times. And so, I mean, I was the one taking care of everything in our today's equal society, which was not the case in our family, obviously. But yeah, and it had its. I think we went during our 13 years together. I think we went abroad twice. And that's for me, that was really struggle, because it was like I'm dying inside because I wanted to do things, but it was like, no, we're staying home, and we could never plan on anything. I was a very spontaneous person, and I wanted to do. I'm impulsive, and I want to do things when it shows up. So when we were going to the countryside to grandma's house, I could say on the road, I could say, well, why don't we stop here and go horseback riding, because it was a place here. And it would always be, no, we cannot do that. And I was like, why? It needs to be planned and organized, and we need to think about it, and we need to calculate on how to do this and why to do it, and if it's going to be beneficial for us, and what's the gain in doing that. What am I gaining doing that? Can I earn something doing that? And to me, it was like, that's life. It's pleasure.
Yeah. Have an adventure. Yeah. And I look back, I had the same situations. Let's go whitewater rafting. Well, I can't, because clearly I don't know if they're going to call me. I don't know if they're going to call me, and we're going to have to go do something. And I don't want to put in for leave. I didn't want to put in for leave.
Yeah. And it was like always on call. And it's like, I can only travel 2 hours from my home, because I have this time in case something happens. This is my time limit where I can go travel. And I cannot do anything extra, because then that might disrupt everything. So yeah, that was one of the things definitely going on. So a lot of staying home, being just us all the time, and being just us, not meeting so many people either, was also one of the things that I thought was really stressful for me, because inviting people to our home, or and so forth, socializing was something that was done really planned too. Like everything needed to be really planned, and just inviting someone to our home was really problematic. I did it, but it was just my friends. It was my closest friends who came, no one else. So it's also something really stressful going on there. And I mean, if I look at it today, and if I could say to the military, oh my God, you need to have more coaches, more people taking care of your people, because even though you go through, I'm sure you have done it several times. You go through the HR, and you go through questionnaires and the psychiatric, and you get, you talk to your boss, and they go through a list of checks to see, are you okay? And all those things. I mean, you guys are like trained to answer the perfect answer.
Exactly.
So you can easily manipulate even your manager, boss, or whomever, because that's your job. So going through that psychiatric evaluations and so forth after being in a very stressful, traumatic situation, it's like easy peasy for you, because you know what to say to get that over with, so that you don't have to deal with yourselves.
That's absolutely the same for us. Absolutely the same mentality, because to us, we're not wrong. There's nothing wrong with us. We can't accept that there's the idea that we are living in a delusion, like that our idea of reality is flawed. Nope. Nope. I've just got to swallow. I just got to keep, if I'm in pain or if something's going on here, I'm not going to say anything. But
Probably
meanwhile,
that would be awful and painful.
yeah,
I mean, we went to therapy, counseling, because our son was really mentally sad for a long period of time. And we went to family counseling, and we also did I think you called the course peer-to-peer,
yeah,
something like that.
yeah, peer-to-peer support.
It was like, everything was my fault. Everything. If someone needed to change, it was me. Because he had the perfect scores at job. He had recommendations and awards and everything. And he had the highest, best everything. And so if there was a change, it needed to be me.
Because there could never be anything wrong with him. There was no way. There was no way in this perfect, perfect body, perfect mind, the perfect warrior. And the reality is no, we are the ones that need to change. We need to be able to stand up and say, hey, I have issues. I need to get help. When the entire family is suffering and everybody's tiptoeing around you and everybody's trying to avoid making you angry, trying to avoid conversations, that's a huge sign. That is a huge sign. And it's not a good feeling, but it should let you know that, man, I'm not doing the right thing by my family. I need to get help. And if you're always pointing at somebody else, man, like think about it. You married somebody and you loved them for every single thing that made them who they are. Now you're both in therapy, you're both getting help, and you're just pointing no, it's all on her. It's all on her. It's like, clearly, no. I
mean, I strongly believe that, I could have also been more prepared. Or if you go in and obviously the society and the social structure and everything has tremendous work to do, because obviously if you are in a relationship with a person within such an organization that are dealing with traumatic things, war and so forth, it's also imperative, I think, that the family members get support if they are to go abroad to do service in other countries, for example, or even going on exercises or trainings, like you said. It's that stressful and traumatic because you don't know. There's so much uncertainty going on all the time that you really don't know. And you can come home with really high stress in your body. Yeah. But oh my God, the families don't get, I don't know how it is in the US, but here the families don't get that support. Not as far as I know, but no. It's really needed, I do believe, because this is something that is shaping a person a lot. I mean, having one job your entire life, or having that kind of situation your entire life, it will have an impact on you, and it will have an impact on how you behave towards your family, friends, and so forth. And it is so common that you take it all out to the closest family that you live with within the four walls of a house, that the friends don't even know anything, because you can easily manipulate your friends into knowing that everything is perfect. And then you take it all out when you get home. I can't remember for the, and this is something that I'm really working still on. I'm not going to take my clothes off, but I'm going to show you, because I measure my heart, and I measure my heart rate, and I measure my heart rate variability and my sleep. Yeah, I have the Aura ring too.
Yeah, me too.
and the thing is, I still have a hard time with my sleep. Probably due to the fact that I've been also trained for 13 years going to bed with uncertainty, or an argument, or the fact that I'd done something wrong every day, and going to bed at night, falling asleep when you have had an argument or there's been anger around you, that's not healthy.
No.
That's not going to create the deep sleep or the REM sleep that you need to recover. And so my sleep today is really, scary, awful still, and something that I'm really working hard to let go, because the parasympathetic system is not good.
No, it's still being in fight or flight mode. It's still being alert, waiting for something to happen. And that's, I mean, I come from a background of, civilian trauma, then combat trauma. And that's the first thing that you realize. You can get completely rewired to live that way, to live on 3 hours of sleep, to live on 4 hours, and you feel horrible. Your body is being wrecked, continuously wrecked, but you don't know any other way of living. And then that becomes normal for you when you're deployed. So you come home, you don't think there's anything wrong. And then you start doing that to your family. Of course, like, no, that's nothing wrong. Of course, there's nothing wrong with my kids not being able to go to sleep. I don't know, whatever. No, we have to understand that even at our best, we can come home and bring anxiety, depression, all sorts of issues, and then just offload those bags of mental issues and freely give it away to our family. If we're not willing to say, oh, wait a second. No. I don't need to be yelling. I don't need to be engaging in arguments, constantly being on the defense with my wife. My wife, you made a choice to marry this person. You made a choice to be with this person, to build a home team with this person. Now you're going to tell them that they're at fault for everything, or nitpick every single thing they do. Well, you shouldn't have done it that way. There's a million other different ways to do it, and you chose to do it this way. But you're living this life where you come home and it's like, oh, I got to engage in this. I have to be right. No. This is your home. You don't have to engage in arguments with your wife about the laundry, about friggin' groceries that she bought. But a lot of us get into this idea that, like, well, I got to make sure I run this house efficiently. Not true. You need to calm down. You need to realize that your family's not in the military. Your family doesn't deserve to live under the stress and pressure. Like, you're just constantly waiting for somebody to come in and abuse you. And that's sadly what I see in a lot of people. And there is a point where there's no going back. There is a point where the damage has been done and there's no making up for it. There's no being able to resolve those issues. And that sucks. That's painful. I don't want people to go through that. I don't want anybody to go through that. But sometimes that is the right call. Sometimes the body, the spirit, the soul can only take so much. And then, go ahead.
But I can imagine it's really difficult too. I mean, if you are wired and you have the mindset that there is absolutely nothing wrong with me, and you blame it all on everybody else, like everybody else, it doesn't matter. How are you going to be able to wake up?
Yeah,
that's the tricky question and the tricky part. So you see, the other week we were in counseling with the children, and the children says to the people that we were talking to, I don't understand why my dad has to respond with anger. Why can he not do like mom, talk about it? Why does he have to be angry and just throw us into the room or scream or, yell or, pull our arms really hard? I don't understand this. Why can he not just talk calmly? And if you are wired in believing that you are doing everything right all the time and everyone else is to blame, like it's the children or it's your wife or it's somebody else's fault all the time, how are you going to wake up from that? Because me or us separating didn't necessarily it wasn't like a wake-up call, this is still going on. So it wasn't a wake-up call. He still blames everything on me. It's still my fault that everything has happened, even though the children says or don't say, well, they obviously don't, they're still afraid of saying to him these things. But I mean, my worry and my wonder is how can we help other people or other men or women, there might be women too, in the same situation, to wake up and understand? Because I get it. You feel terrible inside, but still, if you justify by blaming on someone else, that feels good for a short period of time. And if you do that over and over and over and over again, you will feel good over and over and over again, even though it's short. So you have to get that kick all the time, which makes you do it more often.
Yeah.
Hurt yourself really is what you're doing. So,
absolutely.
I mean, the big thing is, how do you get them? You really want to, grab them by the shoulder and like scream, wake up. But that's not the way to do it, because then you would be slapped.
Yeah. And the hardest thing to accept is you can't force anybody to change. We can't force them. We can't yell. All you can do is constantly advocate like this and take personal experience, authentic, real experience of like, look, I know what it's like to lose everything. I know what it's like to be the absolute worst version of myself in a marriage and not see any of the issues and blame everything on the other person. I know what it's like. And when you finally have somebody after years and years, and you finally stumble and learn some things and finally realize, oh, wow, kind of am a piece of shit. Some of the things about me kind of suck. And the reality is, at some point, all of us get to the point where they have something that they don't want to lose. I didn't want to lose my wife, my current wife. I didn't want to lose my life. Those are the things that really snap out of it. Like, okay, if I continue on this course, I'm going to lose everything. And it sucks because some people will never get there. Some people will never get there. They'll continue on that road. And I've seen it. I've been with friends that say, and I have sat down with them and told them, like, look, you are destroying your family. You're destroying your wife. You are going to lose your marriage. And it's like, no, I'm great. Nope, I'm amazing. It's okay.
But that's the tricky part. How do you do that? Because, I mean, my ex moved on and is living with another woman today. And now we will see what happens. But maybe it's children. I don't know. Or it's not. Yeah. That's the thing. That's the problem. That's the issue. And they say, well, the small things that my children tells me makes me realize that this is already starting to happening in the other relationship. So it's an ongoing process.
It's a cycle.
How do we stop that?
Yeah. The only thing is them realizing that they have to break the cycle. That's the only thing. The only thing we can do is protect ourselves, protect our kids, and really and truly, if people love him, if he has friends that care about him, being able to talk and have those discussions that aren't fun. Like, dude, nobody likes being around you because you're an asshole. Like, look what you're doing. Like, we have to take accountability, and we have to be able to say, I have to get help. And it's a hard thing to get somebody to admit that. It's a very hard thing to say, hey, look, no judgment. I was there too, but there's a better way. There's a better way, and you can mend this and you can heal and you can actually be the person that you want to be. You don't see it right now, but trust me, go take that bold step into getting help and you're going to be a better person. You're going to love the person you are, because a lot of it, come to find out, a lot of it came back and I understood why I was such, pardon my language, such a piece of shit. There was a lack of self-compassion. There was a lot of hate directed inward. There was a lot of hate for who I was. There was a lot of hate for all the things I had endured and gone through. And I realized, why am I punishing myself? Why am I going through the cycle of punishing myself? I can be a better person. I can be the best version of myself. I just have to understand that I have to let go of some ideas. I have to let go of the idea that to be strong and be a manly person, it means I have to be insulting, angry, volatile. No, it takes more strength to be kind and compassionate and to watch your mouth and to say something positive versus flying off the handle. It takes no courage and no strength to be mean, vindictive, harsh. I can get the same effect and get my messages and thoughts across in the same way with compassion, being honest, being vulnerable, being open. I don't have to go straight. Like there's a fine line, like where, not every day do I need to have the capacity to be violent and brutal. Like that's not every day. Maybe someday, yeah. Maybe if the right situation presents itself, if you're a warrior, you're a warrior. You'll tap into what you need to protect yourself, your family, your friends. But that's not the mentality for every day. When you're in the grocery store, when you're talking with your wife, I don't have to yell. I don't have to be violent. I don't have to be rude. I can be kind, compassionate. And sometimes the greatest strength is your ability to be compassionate and caring. Like I learned that, understanding that if somebody lashes out on you, oh, that person's going through something.
Yeah.
That person is going through something right now. It takes 2 seconds for me to disarm them by saying, hey, you all right? Because I know you coming in here and saying the things that you just said, there is something going on in your life. There's something going on, because you wouldn't talk like that to your closest friends. You wouldn't talk that way to a stranger. It's sometimes the biggest obstacle is understanding that we have to get over all that hate and anger that we have towards ourselves. We're not perfect.
Yeah, but it's actually the same thing towards, or for me, or I can imagine any woman or man on the other side in the relationship, because and when you think about it, me also being a professional athlete and with a high standard and high achiever and everything like that, I have so many times asked myself, how the heck could I end up in a situation like this? Why didn't I see it? Why didn't I recognize it? I'm smart. I'm achiever. I'm a goal-oriented person. I know what I want. I'm a strong, independent woman. But then again, no, I couldn't see that coming. And I've given myself so much shit about it.
But you can't give yourself, it's hard.
But I've done.
A lot. That's a common thread that I have seen talking to so many different spouses.
Yes.
Like I was go-getter. I was like, how did I let myself get into this and feel so powerless?
But it's so important to, look at yourself and actually forgive yourself and be that. That's the only way to move ahead and move forward and be the change. You have to let go of the past and say, you didn't have anything to do with this. I mean, I have literally gone through my head over and over and over again. Could I have done something differently? Could I have? Should I have? Would I? Everything. Turned and twisted and looked on different angles. And yeah, of course, maybe I could have. But like I said, if you are in a situation where you are to be blamed for everything and you don't know what to do, that you become so uncertain of yourself that you need to ask for maybe permission or ask for, should I wear this today, for instance? I mean, everybody, when it comes to feelings and emotions, can end up in a situation like that. And it's not easy, especially if you then have kids involved in the situation. Then it gets even worse. But it can happen to everybody. And that's just something that you need to train yourself into understanding, that it's not your fault and it can happen to anybody. And you just have to forgive yourself and look ahead. And the most beautiful thing that you can do is also to forgive the person in the relationship that caused this harm, because he or she didn't even know what he or she was doing. Still, I want to believe that. Now and then I go back and forth, and I was like, no, he knows because he's trained, you know?
Mhm.
But then again, now and then in our relationship, I still saw that person being vulnerable. But it was like a blink of an eye. It was just there, and then it disappeared, and then it was right back on track. And we are responsible for our actions. We are responsible for our decisions in our everyday life, what we do, what we eat, what we do, what we think, everything. We can decide everything. So I have to believe and still think I can forgive him, but he is also responsible for his actions. And he's still responsible for what he's doing, and his choice is choosing whether he still wants to do harm or not. So I can just put myself in a higher state and say, it's his choice. I forgive you for what you have done. But most of all, I forgive myself.
Yes.
And I believe that forgiving yourself is the key to, happiness moving forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
And
true.
I mean,
and
another thing as a mom in a situation like this, when you have kids, oh my God, I've been so angry with myself for not leaving earlier because of the children. What I see in my children today sometimes makes me really frustrated or angry, because I see so many similarities that I don't like. And I go like, oh, I need to reprogram. and this is something it's like, so I've given myself so much shit also on the fact that I should have left earlier. But then again, I couldn't have done it differently than what I did. I did the best of what I could in the moment moving forward. So I have to really work with myself to say, I'm sorry, Jennie. You did the best you could, even in that situation, and you're still doing the best you can.
Absolutely. You were in love and deeply, deeply, deeply connected to another human being, and you desperately wanted for the marriage to work, for the person to wake up.
But also I didn't want to deprive him of his children.
His children, yeah.
Take the children and leave. He's the dad. But still, when the children were younger, I was really afraid to leave because I didn't want to leave him alone with the kids.
Yeah.
And I still thought that I could help him and I could change, or if I did this, maybe he would. And if I did that, maybe he would think differently and so on. But I should have tried to get a lot more help a lot earlier, but that wasn't the case.
No. And you have to remember, and I'm glad you say that you forgive yourself, but always go back to that and understand that you did everything you could. Ultimately, it's on us, the men, the person dealing with the trauma, to get that help. And
yeah, but I wasn't trained in dealing with other people's trauma either. So, I mean, how the heck could I manage the situation?
Yep. And that's the thing. Our spouses don't have a frame of reference for all that. So it's really on us to be able to sit down as adults and be able to, like, hey, if we're going to make this thing work, you need to get help. And then we come together and do treatment together. Because that's the hardest thing, is to get that person to wake up and realize, like, hey, this is no fault of your own, but if you keep not paying attention and put it on the back burner, you're at fault, man. You got to be able to wake up, realize what you're about to lose. And that's, for us on the other side, everybody that's been able to understand and get help. That's the most frustrating thing, to see it happening in front of us. We're looking into a time machine. We're looking to a portal. We're seeing ourselves again. And we're desperately trying to tell somebody, go get help. You're not in the right mind. You're dealing with a lot of different variables that you don't really understand. And we've just now started talking about how TBI changes our personality, our perception. We're not talking about emotions. We're not even talking about the normal stuff, the normal issues with therapy that we can fix. And back when I was at my worst, I would not acknowledge that you should be emotional and logical. I was always, well, I'm a logical person. I don't deal with emotions. Come on, guy. Everybody has emotions. It's part of being a human being, but that's another concept that we are so ill-informed on. We're the most emotional human beings. We're the most divas. We're the most emotional people out there, but we won't acknowledge it. We're completely emotional. We are, like I said, every soft guy. I hate to tell you guys, you're a diva. You're so emotionally unregulated. Everything's the most important thing on earth. Everything's an emergency, but you fail to acknowledge and see that, like, wow, I'm always acting like everything's out of control. It's like, dude, we're emotional divas, and we need to learn how to regulate that and understand that, yeah, we're logical too, but we need to acknowledge emotions, because it's not just being angry and being happy and being sad. There's a whole bunch of different things. But it's so true. Our spouses work so damn hard because they think it's just them. It's just on us. And you guys go to war on your own. You're literally going through combat because you're experiencing the same side effects. Fight or flight, anxiety, depression. And then you're having to keep the kids alive and us. Like, so.
Yeah, literally, I can say I thought I was at war every day for many years.
Yeah.
And I said so many times, like, you go to war, you go to your work, and you come home, and then you war at home. Do you have to create war all the time? Like, I don't want to be at war. I have my job, and I have to take care of the kids, and I have to do this, but I don't have to be at war with you. Yeah. Why do you always create this? But it was a storm, and I mean, I can never put myself in the shoes of someone who's been abroad in war, fighting for his life or her life or country and so forth, and see. I have been in very traumatic countries where you have real suffer too. So I've seen my share of it, absolutely, but from a different perspective. So I can absolutely understand some of it, but I cannot put myself in your shoes of being in a situation of, having to be awake because you don't know what's going to happen every second. But don't bring it home.
Absolutely.
don't bring it with you. It's so important to let go. And I can understand that that's probably the most difficult, because you probably see pictures of it also, and it follows you, it haunts you through the night and so forth. But oh my God, seek help. You're not helping your family.
Yeah. And the help
And
is out there. That's the
yeah.
thing here in the United States, even though within the military, it's still a battling culture. It's still trying to make it so that it's a mandatory thing where guys are being told that, hey, you have to go through this. You have to take it seriously. And here's the block of time, and allocating the time and resources to really get them in front of a therapist and a provider that can help treat them. Same with the families. But on the outside, there are so many organizations that are there to help us, that keep everything, you know,
I don't know how it is in the US, but is it mandatory, or is it just like, it should be mandatory for
it's the
years.
same. Yeah, it's the same way you described it earlier, where the guys after every deployment, guys come in. Yep, yeah. I'm fine. And it's only if there's a huge incident or they finally advocate for themselves and walk in and say, I need help.
Yeah.
But you can see it now. I can see it in individuals' faces, like, oh, that guy needs help. That person needs help.
I'm sure you can, because you've been there and you've been in the situation, and now you work with people. I mean, it's like me. I work with Halt today, and I can see in people's faces and eyes if they're troublesome or if there's something going on. And you can see that through wrinkles in the face. You can see that through the eye color. You can see that through. There's so many signs. I didn't see it then, but I see it today. So what are we going to do? How are we going to get them all to go and get help?
And that's our mission. That's the Security Halt's mission, is being able to get this type of discussion, these authentic, real world interviews with survivors, people that have lived the life. And then that person that's listening to the podcast, or the wife that's listening to the podcast, can say, you know what? Sit down. We're listening to this. And every time that same theme, that same message comes out, pause and say, hey, did you hear what she just said? That's how I feel. That's how I feel. And I love you. And I want our marriage to work. And I want you to be a great person. I want you to be the person I married. And we can only get there if you're willing to be strong enough and go get help. And you can't do it for me. It's for you. You got to do it for you.
I would have wanted that for the kids and for us.
Yeah.
It was totally impossible. I would not have survived.
Yeah.
Mentally, I was totally broken down, drained. And I got to the point where I got really sick.
Yeah.
I mean, and to be there, you know how you go on a flight and everyone says, save yourself first, Yep. And if I hadn't done that, I would not have been here for my kids at all, because I was so drained and so depressed and down and low of energy. And I still struggle with energy, because it's taking a real toll on my body. Pain everywhere in my body. For a couple of years, when I woke up and I was getting out of bed, I couldn't even walk without holding myself like this, because I had so much pain in my body. And that was pain from, resentment, anger, frustration, not being respected, especially not being respected for being me and being a person. I was, and it takes its toll on your health. That's what's happening. And that is what I want for people to, wake up and see today, how your life actually matter, and how your life, you only have one life. You need to take care of it and value yourself. Put yourself
Absolutely.
first.
Yeah. You can't wait forever, because ultimately forever will mean your life. And that's the truth. That's the sad reality. We hold on to what the person used to be, or maybe what they could be. And you just holding on to that dream that they'll snap back. Maybe there's little moments of happiness, but they're outside of that. It's just pain, misery, stress. You have to be able to place yourself and your kids first. If it's not safe, if there's been nothing but broken promises, you have to be able to say, enough's enough. I need to get somewhere safe. And your safety, that also includes your mental well-being. Like, abuse comes in a wide variety of different ways. We tend to think that abusive relationships are only about physical. No, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, all those things are ways that just are poison, and they always manifest if you don't take the steps to get help. You don't want to be that person. You don't want to be that toxic husband, that toxic spouse, but you will get there. It will eventually spiral out of control if you don't go get help. You can look up at all the research, the data, the math, everything points to it. The easiest thing you can do is stop, get help. Whenever your partner approaches you and says, hey, like, every time you come home, it feels like I have to walk on eggshells. Every time you're home, it feels like we're waiting for an argument or an explosion. That's not how you're supposed to live life. That's not reality. That's not life. And if you're dealing with that, it's okay to get help. It's okay to leave, to seek shelter somewhere else. You don't owe anybody an explanation. You don't owe anybody a long, detailed explanation as to why you left. If safety is a concern, if your safety, your child's safety, your well-being is concerned, leave and get help.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to educate people on what are the differences. I mean, it doesn't, like you say, have to be physical. It could be sexual.
Yeah.
If you don't consent, it can be economically. It can be, I don't know if you call it latent or the walking on eggshells. What's the word for that? I don't know the word for it. Not knowing, but that something's going to happen. So you have to really, you're walking around really uncertain.
You're in fear and uncertain. Ambiguity. You're in fear that something bad's going to always happen.
Yeah, it's a specific word for it. I don't know it in English, but in Sweden, it's a specific word for it. And then you have, mental, psychological abuse. And it's these four are all abuse, different types of abuse. If it affects you in a bad way and you feel discomfort or you feel not good inside, you have to do something about it. You have to make a change. Take care of your life.
Absolutely.
That's my message. Take care of your life. You matter.
Yep. You do. Absolutely. And we're not here to advocate for one side of the relationship. We're advocating for both. So don't feel like this isn't something that could apply to your spouse, to your friends. Share this with anybody that you know is having a relationship problem and their significant others in the military, because oftentimes we want to get to the situation before you've crossed that line, before it's crossed that line where you have to get the police involved, where you have to press charges, where that person now has to be punished and serve time. And sometimes the biggest thing that can be a catalyst for change is when that person's significant other does finally leave. And that sucks. That's a horrible thing. But you know what? That's the reality. You can't force someone to stay with you. You can't hold somebody hostage for the rest of their life. That's not how love works. That's not love. Like, you can't tell somebody that, well, if you loved me, you'd stay. No, because if you loved and valued the life that you have, you'd go get help. So today, as soon as you hear this, if you've identified and listened to anything that I've said, and maybe it touched close to home, it's not too late. It's not too late to change. It's not too late to go home to your wife and say, hey, I listened to something today and I realized that I've got some changes to make. Let's sit down, because I really feel like, man, I need to get help because the way I'm acting at home is wrong. You can have your marriage. You can have the family and life of your dreams. All it takes is a little bit of courage and the strength to go get help. And now more than ever, you go to our website, just look on the internet. You can find places that will take you in. You go to treatment centers free of charge to get help, or get a therapist free of charge so you can talk through and work through your problems. You just have to be brave. If you're brave enough to go to Afghanistan, if you're brave enough to go into combat, and you're brave enough to take on this journey, you owe it to yourself. The best version of yourself lies on the other side of treatment. So stop being afraid and go get help. Jennie, thank you so much for being here today. I absolutely enjoyed both of our talks, and I can't wait to have you back on so we can actually talk about what you're doing now, because today's episode was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. I am very glad, very fortunate to have met you, and I'm glad you're doing better. And I know you're going to continue kicking ass and finding your way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here. Can I just
yes,
finish
please.
off by saying one little thing?
Please.
Leaving someone doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get back together again, but it could be a starting point of a healing process.
Absolutely. Well said. Thank you so much, Jennie. But we're not done yet, guys. We need your help to raise $10,000 in order to help our great friend Tim Molesky save his forge. That's right. Go to the episode right now and click the link to GoFundMe and go donate some money. I love you.